Netflix offers a bizarre apology after sexualizing 11-year-old girls who dance. We all know from past experience, at Netflix, it's perfectly okay to sexualize 11-year-old kids if they're boys pretending to be girls. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we start with Netflix, the #1 media streaming platform in the world, and their fascination with creepy, pedo-like programming, their latest marketing mistake to use sexualized 11-year-old girls to promote an upcoming film called, wait for it, Cuties.
And it's not even that they really apologized for it. It's the inappropriate artwork they used to then promote it. So it's not like they're pulling the whole video down or anything, because you know what? They're still going to sexualize 11-year-old girls. So basically, take a look at the image that they're using, or they were going to use. 11-year-old girls there to dance. And it was not just like the artwork itself, but basically how they used the description to claim what this video would be. So the whole premise, I guess, of this is an 11-year-old black Muslim child is becoming fascinated with a twerking dance crew. Twerking, do you know what twerking is?
I know, and I would give you a demonstration, but it would blow out all the circuits, so I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
I got some badonk.
All right. Well, this twerking dance crew engages in a sensual dance. They're calling it a sensual dance. And so parents saw this and said, how dare you, Netflix? I can't believe you're doing this. So Netflix had to, of course, issue said apology. We're deeply sorry for the inappropriate artwork that we used for mignones, or cuties. It was not okay, nor was it representative of this French film, which won an award at Sundance. We've now updated the pictures and description.
So we're going to continue to exploit the little girls. We're going to continue to push and one of the aspects of this movie that I already, just looking at the trailers and whatnot, is it's anti-religion. Now, interestingly, the religion it's against is Islam, right? Which is kind of I think that's why this has gotten such critical reviews, right? It's dared to take on Islam in ways that usually is reserved for Christianity. Think about, this is Footloose, fast-forwarded, and with
less bacon.
Less bacon and a lot less clothes and a lot younger girls.
One for the party, two for the shawty, three for the shake, yeah.
Oh mais les gens ils t'ont grave kiffé que tu vois tous les likes qu'on a eu.
Vous avez quel âge?
Non, 14.
And again, the fact that they call these cuties, like those little stupid little oranges that kids eat, it's just something that's very creepy about it. And here's my question. We haven't even seen a single twerk, and we're supposed to believe that's the real conflict here. And yet the young Muslim girl who's at the head, the star of this, does she even own a shirt that has something that covers her belly?
No, apparently not. They can't afford it. Maybe, I don't know.
Yes, only so much cloth available to these Muslim immigrants. But there's not a single image of her in that clip you just showed where her belly's covered.
Of course not, because it's about twerking and being free and sensual.
But if it's such a conservative Muslim household, would they have really let her out of the house dressed like that?
I'm guessing if we watch the whole thing, she's probably clothed in the house, and then when she breaks out, that's the whole.
And so she's got access to a whole secret underworld of hoe clothing.
So here's what the film initially said as a description. 11-year-old Amy lives with her mom, Miriam, and younger brother, awaiting her father to rejoin the family from Senegal. Amy is fascinated by disobedient neighbor Angelica's free-spirited dance clique, a group that stands in sharp contrast to stoic Miriam's deeply held traditional values. Undeterred by the girl's initial brutal dismissal and eager to escape her family's simmering dysfunction, Amy, through an ignited awareness of her burgeoning femininity, propels the group to enthusiastically embrace an increasingly sensual dance routine, sparking the girls' hope to twerk their way to stardom at a local dance contest. That's the initial one.
And the thing that's so disgusting about this, that why is it for progressives that the only way young girls can be empowered is to become sexualized? Are they even aware of that? Progressives in this world, in the Western world, have become so intellectually bankrupt, so morally broke, that sexuality is the only pathway for women to express themselves. There's nothing else, right, that we could think of that would... why couldn't she be a great chess player? Why couldn't she be... There's 1,000 things you could make her, right, to make the exact same message than turning her into a twerking hoe. And here's another thing. Think about what we've had to deal with. This is 3 generations of this now. Right now, we're dealing with the Cardi B's of the world, right? You think about how Cardi B, and we did a show about this last week, how they dragged just right into the gutter with this language. The things that Cardi B is singing about now in her latest song, I would blush to tell you, and I don't have enough blood in me to blush anymore. So come from somewhere. And then you got number 2. So this generation suffers under the Cardi B's of the world. Then their mothers got indoctrinated by Lady Goo Goo Gaga, right? And then before that, it was Madonna, right? I mean, you've got decades and decades and decades now of this creepy alliance between almost pedophiliac sexuality of little girls and liberation and emancipation. It really is a devil's bargain. You got to get rid of that idea. Women, in fact, you're doing exactly the opposite. You're sexualizing women to show you how sexually free they are. Did you ever stop and think about that? No.
So we have the old description, which is pretty detailed in what this movie is about. The new synopsis simply says Amy, 11 years old, tries to escape family dysfunction by joining a free-spirited dance clique named Cuties as they build their self-confidence through dance. That leaves out a lot, and in a way, I'd almost rather have the other description because it's more honest as to what these kids are going to see.
Heaven forbid that new sanitized version might make you think she's a ballet dancer, heaven forbid, right?
Yeah, or anything else.
Or a polka dancer.
Hey.
Or a Irish clog dancer.
Ooh, clogging is still in.
That's more Dutch, isn't it?
Whatever, still
what
clogging.
Lord of the Dance. There's 1,000 different...
Flatley.
There's 1,000 different forms of dance you could use that would not require partial nudity and gyrating hips. I'm just pointing that out, America.
As if our colleges don't already waste our time and money, they are now mandating at the University of Pittsburgh that you have to take a 1-credit anti-racism course. And it's called Anti-Black Racism, History, Ideology, and Resistance. And the frequently asked questions page for the university actually states that all full-time first-year students on the Pittsburgh and Bradford campuses will be auto-enrolled in the Pitt 210 course for the fall 2020 semester, adding that the course is mandatory. You cannot drop it.
Right, and I wonder what they're charging for this. I mean, that's another thing.
You're auto-enrolled.
Because you know they're putting you in a course that you would not have chosen. They're telling you can't get out of it, and they're probably making you pay for it.
Well, and how much are credits these days? Like 1 credit's like 300, 400,
More
500.
than that, yeah.
I don't even know what it is anymore. But from each of the new full-time first-year kids, it's all about the dollars there.
But the idea that this is on top of everything else they're doing. This is predicated on the idea that the University of Pittsburgh, a major progressive university full of all kinds of PhDs who graduated from progressive programs, that somehow Pitt isn't doing anything to address social injustice, right? That this is the only thing we're going to do. No, this is on top of 8 dozen other things. You don't think they're going to get the same lecture when these kids go to their dorms? You don't think they're going to be separated at the dormitory level with the RAs telling them all about racial? You don't think in their freshman writing classes that they're going to be writing about poetry? No, they're going to be writing about racial and ethnic issues. You think in their history classes, their philosophy classes, do you think in their religion classes, do you really think on campus this is all they're going to get? No, this is one more onerous responsibility that you're putting on these kids. You're literally transforming school away from anything meaningfully like education towards this kind of incessant grinding down kids until their worldview fits your own one. And progressives on college campuses, it's a teeny weeny worldview. It's a lot of grinding on kids. It's a lot of sparks flying off your children. They entered college 6'1", and by the time they get whittled into these little social justice cartoons, they're about four inches high.
Why do you think I'm so short?
That was a pretty tortured metaphor.
It was
wasn't
quite tortured. On the positive, these students then can just kind of alter assignments from class to class. They won't have to do any
That's
additional
right.
work.
You could turn in the same one paper.
One paper for the whole college career. The university actually thought it was smart to put out a detailed syllabus for all to see. And of course, we looked at it. And so under the course overview, they, begin it saying how this course started because, in the wake of this police killings of George Floyd and all the other people they decided to list. And this course is built around the expertise of Pitt faculty and Pittsburgh area activists.
There you go.
This course will introduce them to the established tradition of scholarship focused on the Black experience and Black cultural expression. It also seeks to examine the development, spread, and articulations of anti-Black racism in the United States and around the world. The course will grapple with 3 key areas of inquiry: the roots, ideology, and resistance to anti-Black racism. And the roots, not the band, but the roots of racism.
Right, and it's only Black.
Only Black.
So a complete course on Black ideology.
Anti-Black racism.
Exactly. And then don't forget, like I said before, you're not going to be able to leave the trans kids out, or the gay kids, or the women. You're not going to be able to leave the Asians out, or the Hispanics out. And so this is just how soon before you have to do a module mandatory like this for all of them. And look, here's some bullet points from the syllabus. First, we will explore the roots of anti-Black racism in the United States, the history of slavery, and the transatlantic slave trade.
That's
this is
first.
This is number
first.
one.
Number one.
This is a 1-credit class. They're going all the way back to the history of Africa, then to talk about the history of slavery, and then the history of transatlantic slavery. So there's going to be no history here.
History majors don't even get a quarter of all of that, but you're going to get it in your 1-credit class.
This is ideology, right?
Yeah.
What they're going to basically be telling you is what we're going to see in a show coming up later in the week, that in reality, cops are no different than slave drivers. That white people alive today are every bit as much engaged in the slave trade as they were 200 years ago. That's all ideology. There's no way you could teach a course like that, especially for 1 credit. All is going to happen is all real content will be emptied out. And it's going to be more Black Lives Matter rhetoric, Marxist Black Lives Matter rhetoric coming at these kids again and again and again.
Well, we can keep going through the objectives, but you got to get to the nitty-gritty details because it's too fun. One of the weeks, because they actually put out every week what they're going to do, week 11, they're going to do formal schooling in anti-Blackness, which focuses on challenging a student's past education on American history. The students are going to be asked to consider how your schooling experiences have taught and mistaught you about the origins of this nation.
Right. In other words, everything you learn that's not nasty about America is wrong.
Yeah, and then, of course, the leaders in the Black Lives Matter movement will partake in a conversation for a lesson. They're going to bring in those outside speakers. And then I love the fact that the grading, it's like a pass-fail thing, and you are required during the Black Study Week. They have something called Black Study Week. It's organized by the Center for African American Poetry and Poetics. So there's your poetry.
Gee, there you go. Maybe
they have to attend an activity by them.
Maybe they'll have some slam poetry.
Ooh, slam.
Yeah, I mean, look, with all due respect, I'm going to point this out because nobody else seems to want to. The Black Lives Matter ideology is pseudo-scientific Marxism warmed over. It's not intellectual. It's not deep. It's not academic. It's not real scholarship. So what are you doing at the universities? You're taking up your kids' time and money with fake scholarship and fake history to rewrite, to obliterate traditional history, actually history that conforms to what actually happened event-wise, and to replace it with ideology. That's what you're doing. And universities, so sites of supposed education, are the ones doing it.
Whether they're at college or they're down in our K-12 system, our kids are going to just be inundated with all this anti-Blackness, racism talk, gobbledygook. And we've learned that in California, because of course it's California, a teacher who remained anonymous for fear of retribution from her union spoke about how she received a 20-page training manual that she's supposed to pass on to her children, who she's teaching, and it involves Karl Marx's critical race theory. So the critical race theory, it argues that data, facts, and the scientific method are exemplary of whiteness and are inherently racist. And she says that teachers were taught during the training session that they all had to attend that racism is inherent in all white people. Owning property is a form of whiteness. And that white people only help the black people if it's self-serving. Of course, that's what this 20-page manual says. But it's a PDF, so you can get it online.
So charity now is hate.
Yes.
Love now is coercion.
All of it is.
Assistance is now racism.
Yes,
And
of course.
as we just saw in the last story, so these kids are getting this in high school. 20-page manual handed out to all the teachers. What do you think is going to go on in California schools this fall? Do you think there's going to be really a lot of studying of math and English and reading and writing? No. What's going to 20-page manual how you will start the semester focusing on nothing more than racial disharmony, which you are perpetrating, by the way.
And this 20-page guide is called How to Talk About Race.
Yes.
And it actually goes through the 5 tenets of critical race theory, which are counter-storytelling, permanence of racism, whiteness as property, interest convergence, and critique of liberalism.
Counter storytelling. Whatever stories you've been taught from history or even science, because the empirical method now and reason, these are white supremacy, right? Every story you've been told, you have to untell it and tell it again through Black Lives Matter, right? Everything is racist. Everything is wrong. Every crime, every riot, every murder, every bloodbath like the city of Chicago has become with black-on-black violence, that is no longer even discussable or blamable on anybody black. It has to be the new narrative. Start with that, counter-narratives. Whatever the truth is, tell them the untruth. This is literally what the Soviet Union did for 70 years, right? The larger the lie, the more you tell the lie, the more gullibly people will accept the lie. And this is happening in your schools. So when they finish this in high school, guess what? They go to places like Pitt, and then they have to do it again. And then they get into their freshman English class, they do it again. And then they take their history class, which has been co-opted by Black Lives Matter, 1619 program, then they got to do it again. And they do it again and again and again until you spend all this money on their education and they graduate half-wits in the streets burning down car companies.
But the best one, I mean, there are 5 of them, but the 5th one is the one that's going to get your white guilt going. It's called Critique of Liberalism. And they said in the packet, on the surface, many liberal approaches such as colorblindness and incremental change appear to be desirable goals to pursue. However, these concepts are insufficient to address and often perpetuate systemic racism. So they go through all these tenets, and then at the very end, when they're training, I'm just imagining this, they're like, and now go home and cry about your white guilt and repent.
What they're saying at the end is that nothing you can do will fix it.
So you still have to repent.
The only thing you can do is, in every way, shape, and form, surrender to Black Lives demands.
Well, and that's number 2, permanence of racism. They're saying that it is a permanent component in the U.S., which then you're supposed to, I'm guessing, go to the conclusion that, well, that's why we need to tear it all down and start again.
And that's it. What they want is not compromise. They don't want debate. They don't want protest. They don't want reasoned argument. They don't want to win at the ballot box. They don't want to change hearts and minds. They just want everything now. Change the country now, put us all in charge, apologize for your sins, give us your wealth, as the rioters in California are moving through the streets now and in residential neighborhoods, demanding you guys get out of your house and give them to us.
Yep.
Give us your houses. You keep paying the mortgage, but give us your houses. What they want is, for lack of a word, a blackocracy, right? Where at every level of government, of every level of leadership, every level of wealth, every level of participation, every level of schooling, African Americans of a very narrow stripe, the Black Lives Matter people, control, dictate, and benefit and profit from all of it at the expense of everybody else.
It's time for some real education. Now, if you're a smart person out there and you watch instant classics regularly, you know that Michelangelo Merisi, otherwise known as Caravaggio, is one of our favorites. And today, Dr. Duke is considering Caravaggio's The Beheading of Saint John the Baptist. The picture is one of Caravaggio's masterpieces, as well as one of the most important works in Western painting. The oil on canvas painting is massive. It's 12 feet by 17 feet, depicting the execution of John the Baptist, while nearby a servant girl stands audience with a golden platter to receive his head.
This painting was commissioned by the Knights of Malta. Caravaggio got into some really trouble. He was your typical artist, right? Brilliant as a creator, but just psychologically and behaviorally messed up. Probably now we think maybe he was bipolar, something like that. But he actually had to run away from Rome, where he was situated, because he killed somebody in a duel. Murdered somebody in a duel, ran away, and the Pope's men, the officers of the Pope, were actively seeking Caravaggio to be dragged back to Rome and either imprisoned or executed. So he kept running, ran to Naples, and finally ended up in Malta, where the Knights of the Hospitaller Knights were, the Knights of St. John the Baptist were. And he became a member of this secret military organization. And one of the reasons they took him is because they recognized the Knights that he was a great painter, and he could take the headquarters of the Knights of Malta and really turn it in to some kind of a beautiful place. And this is the picture he gave them over the high altar. These are the Knights of St. John the Baptist, and there it is, right? I mean, this picture is staggering. It is one of the great works of Western literature. It's one of the great of Western art. One of the great paintings ever conceived. First of all, look at the depth in the picture. You've got the arch, you've got the window, and then there in the foreground, you've got looking through the window jail. You've got a couple of criminals who are staring at the scene. You've got an assassin who has got John pinned down in a very brutal way, reaching behind his back with his right arm to dislodge the knife from the sheath that's going to cut the head off John the Baptist. Give us a little closer picture, Mike. The gruesomeness of the image here, the reality of it, the verisimilitude of the image. And you can see the blood spurting from the wound. And in the blood at the bottom right-hand corner, you can see one of the only time, actually, that Michelangelo Merisi Caravaggio actually signed one of his pictures. He actually, in the blood, and remember, this is a man who's wanted for blood. He has wanted, a dead or alive man. He's wanted for the killing of a criminal in Rome. He's written his name in blood to make a statement, right? In a way, Caravaggio is associating himself in this picture with John and the violence that's ensued here. Again, this was commissioned by the Knights of Malta as an altarpiece. The painting was, as Katie pointed out, the largest Caravaggio would ever paint. Still hangs in St. John's Co-Cathedral in Malta, for which it was commissioned, and where Caravaggio himself was inducted briefly and served as a knight. Caravaggio's service to the order was brief and troubled, however. He soon became a fugitive from justice for assaulting another fellow knight. So he almost killed another one of his brother knights. He ran away from Malta, was running from the Roman police and running now for the Knights of Malta. But out of this suffering and angst and misery and this troubled mind of this great genius, you go back and take one last glimpse of what that power, what that troubled, turbulent life could do when it was transitioned through art.
All right, as always, you can follow us on Facebook and Parler. And if you have any questions for us, please visit freedomproject.com/askduke and send them our way. Now we're going to wrap things up with our fun fact of the day. Every year, Netflix, because they have all the money to spend, they spend $150 million just trying to improve the recommended system that they have for movies that they think you'll like. So when you go to Netflix, they have that recommended. And they say that users spend only 2 minutes trying to find a movie, and they'll choose one, or they're just going to get distracted and turn it off completely. 2 minutes.
Well, 2 minutes to select
and
a movie.
And $150 million they spend every year.
But about 7 seconds to figure out if you're going to read the news online. I still think, so think about how much more time, that sounds horrible, but how much more time will people spend picking a movie than they will deciding if they're going to read the news. And that's our show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.